Hey, I'm Rachel Abbott, and welcome back to the Standard's Tech and Science Daily podcast. Coming up, it's a big day for US users of TikTok. But first, the discovery of rare 430 million-year-old fossils, that's many years from before the dinosaurs even walked the Earth, has allowed a team of international researchers to understand more about the evolution of ancient mollusks. When you think of mollusks, you probably think of a slug, snail, octopus, or squid. But according to our guest today, they are also the second most diverse and important group of living creatures.
The mollusks represent a really important slice of animal life. And although you may think of them just in terms of slugs, actually they're really diverse, particularly in the seas. And they're a really important part of Earth's ecosystem.
That's lead author Dr. Mark Sutton at Imperial College London's Department of Earth Science and Engineering.
We're interested in just finding out more about what life was like in the past, really. And to do that, we need really well-preserved fossils, which are very rare. We're interested in the evolutionary pathways, in what evolved into what, how different structures appeared, what they were used for, how we went from whatever the earliest ancestor of the mollusk was to the different types we have today. And these sort of help fill in the picture for that. But we're also interested in how they lived, not just what they looked like, not whether they had a foot or whether they had shells and things like that. We're also interested in how they moved, how they lived, how they actually worked, whether that's different to today. With these fossils, it looks like may well have moved in this rather unusual caterpillar-like inching way that very few marine animals do today, and certainly no mollusks do. But it seems to be caught in its death position in a sort of an attempt to move.
Found in a fossil hotspot on Herefordshire's Welsh border, Dr. Sutton explained to Tech and Science Daily why the discovery is so significant. The team used 3D advanced imaging techniques, including X-ray scanning.
Because while mollusks with shells sometimes preserve quite well as fossils, a lot of mollusks are really just made up of soft tissue, and usually that just doesn't fossilize. It's really rare find a case where you get an unusual organism like this that's actually preserved fully with all its dangly bits intact. And here we've got that not just with its soft tissues, but we've got it in full 3 dimensions as well, which is even rarer. There's hardly anywhere in the world where this happens. So we've got insights into the early history of the mollusks for some really quite odd and unusual molluscan animals that we just didn't know existed previously because of really, really unusual fossil preservation.
Slow. There's another secret that nobody's ever told.
And the researchers named these fossils Emo and Punk. But why?
When we first started working on these fossils, the first time I saw Punk was the one I saw first. I fairly randomly just chose pink as a good colour for the spines, so I wanted to make them stand out. And I looked at it and it just thought, this just looks like a 1980s punk hairstyle. The way in which these this big spiked array of spines stick straight out. So the name for punk was fairly inevitable, and emos to follow from that. Emo was the second of these fossils that I reconstructed, and of course the emo movement came out of punk and it followed on from it. And the hairstyle is a bit more like an emo fringe sort of thing. So pet names were when we were describing them that stuck. Because in the end with fossils, the name doesn't really matter. People often try to produce sort of important scientific sounding names, but the name's just a label. And a label that people remember is better. So punk and emo, they are.
This research is published in the journal Nature. Keep listening on before you find that old playlist from the past. Now, free speech and national security go head-to-head in the US Supreme Court on Friday to decide the American fate of social media video app TikTok. TikTok says it plans to shut down in the States by January 19th unless the court can stop a law being enacted, forcing TikTok's sale by its Chinese parent company ByteDance. President Joe Biden signed into law a bill last spring requiring ByteDance to sell the app in less than a year or face a ban in the US. Now, to complicate matters further, President-elect Donald Trump has dropped his earlier support for a ban to his new administration time to reach a political resolution instead. Next, at the time of this podcast being recorded, the death toll from the major Los Angeles wildfires had risen to 10, officials have said. It came after a suspected arsonist was arrested following a new, fast-moving blaze threatening more homes. The so-called Kenneth Fire started in the San Fernando Valley, near the West Hills neighborhood and close to Ventura County, as an urgent evacuation order was issued. Earlier wildfires have already destroyed thousands of properties, including many homes to stars, and risked major tourist destinations, including the famous Hollywood sign. As firefighters continue to battle the fires, authorities said they were still facing significant threats. To hear our interview on the causes with a climate scientist who specialises on the mountain winds fanning the flames, we've added a link to this episode's notes. Let's go to a very quick break. See you back here in just a minute. Welcome back. The UK's Defence Committee says the Ministry of Defence must learn from Ukraine and embrace artificial intelligence. The committee say their inquiry found a gap between the Ministry of Defence's rhetoric and reality on AI. While the department acknowledges the importance of artificial intelligence, these words have not been borne out by action. Emma Llewellyn-Buck MP, chair of the subcommittee on developing AI capacity and expertise in UK defence, said artificial intelligence in defence is here to stay. The UK must move fast to avoid falling behind. Emma said the Ukraine's use of the technology shows that it offers serious military advantage on the battlefield. The committee are calling for the Ministry of Defence to transform itself into an AI native organisation, fully integrating AI into its work and mindset. They also said that while the UK's defence AI sector may not compete with the USA and China in scale, we can offer valuable specialism and sophistication. Next, new research suggests that having regular contact with friends and family could help prevent risk from diseases such as heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes, and help boost immune systems. Scientists from the UK and China studied proteins from blood samples taken from over 42,000 adults recruited to the UK Biobank.
Proteins are really exciting and important now. And we focused on what's called proteomics, which is the study of proteins. And basically, proteins are large, complex molecules that play many critical roles within the body. And we know that proteins play a role in gene expression, and that's the process by which information encoded in the gene is turned into biological activity.
Barbara Jacqueline Sahakian there, professor in clinical neuropsychology based at the University of Cambridge in the Department of Psychiatry, and lead author on the study. The team investigated which proteins were present in higher levels among people who were socially isolated or lonely.
Also, proteins, excitingly, are a major source of drug targets. It's a way that you can identify something that might be able to be used and developed into a novel medication. So that's why we studied the proteins. And we were very interested because we had a study in neurology earlier on, which showed that social isolation, if people who were older adults were socially isolated, they had a 26% higher risk of getting dementia. And we knew that also from that study that loneliness was associated with depression. So we wanted to understand what's a biological mechanism by which this happens. How does loneliness affect the body and mind, basically?
They say their work has highlighted a number of proteins that appear to play a key role in this relationship, with levels of some proteins in particular increasing as a direct consequence of loneliness. The study is published in the journal Nature Human Behaviour. And finally, we're just days away from the much-anticipated new Netflix offering from the Duchess of Sussex, a cooking and lifestyle show called With Love, Meghan.
I've always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it.
And there will be some considerable pressure for the Duchess to bring in the ratings after Meghan and Harry's self-titled series, which was derided as, well, a bit dull. Now we're joined by the London Standard's culture and lifestyle writer India Block, a self-confessed Meghan stan and a supporter of House Sussex, whose article on the new show you can read via the link in this show's notes.
I think
There is some pressure. I'm surprised it's taken this long for them to get this cooking show out, because obviously, I mean, this was the obvious thing that Meghan was going to do next. It doesn't matter if you're hate watching or if you're love watching, Netflix gets the number at the end of the day. I think it will be interesting to see whether it gets renewed. If it doesn't, everyone's going to immediately jump on Meghan and be like, oh, well, like, obviously she was terrible, didn't get renewed, la la la. But then so many brilliant things get killed on Netflix.
It comes as the Duchess made a return to Instagram, reactivating the handle @Meghan.
Everyone starts dissecting it, being like, what's Meghan doing? Blah, blah, blah. So they were all paying attention when she then dropped the trailer. Instagram has become very video heavy. I think, back when she was doing the TIG, it would have been much more stills. So I think a smart move from her there. Comments off, very sensible. It's all, again, this very sort of like dreamy aesthetic, very non-confrontational, online, female influencer, aspirational vibes.
With Love, Meghan is released on January 15th. You're up to date. Come back at 4 p.m. for the Standard podcast. Tech and Science Daily returns on Monday. We wish you a lovely weekend. And for all the latest news, head to standard.co.uk.